Okay, so let's get right into the material. The focus of this webinar here is a discussion of how college funding works. We're going to be looking at the actual industry. And yes, college is an industry, not so much a service, and we'll explain that in a little bit. And what we're trying to show you is the basic rules of the game, give you an understanding of how it's played, what the field looks like, so that you understand what you're getting into. There's a lot that you can do as parents and as students on your own. And there's a lot that you might decide you should have a professional help you with. But at least at the end of this course, what you will know is whether or not you are able to handle this on your own or if you need help. And let me put it this way. It's like the advantage you have if you go to a mechanic and they tell you that there's some problems with your car. And if you don't know anything about cars, you don't know anything about repairs, you might just believe what they say. Whereas if you at least have a basic understanding of how vehicles work and what generally costs should be, how much parts are, you're able to make a more informed decision. And sometimes you'll decide you can handle it yourself, and sometimes you'll decide you need someone to do it for you. Now then, let's get into it. This is that's my company, so it's College Planning Experts. We are your college planning advocates, and one of the reasons I want you to see this logo to begin with is because regardless of whether we are your representatives in this process, we are committed to being your advocate. So at this point, we want to help you. And I don't have a problem helping families make decisions, answering questions, and working with you along the way. So please consider us your resource. You have a, how that one commercial goes, you have a friend in the diamond business, you have a friend in the college planning business, and we're here to help you, your family, and your friends as well. What we're going to look at, our mission is to affordably launch the next generation of savvy, wise leaders. We want to arrange your financial situation to pay for college with as little out-of-pocket expense as possible. I believe that if we're able to help you pay for college better and get as much free money as possible, we will be able to raise a generation of well-educated, capable, wise leaders. Now, you may already have seen my introduction. That's me. My name is Andre Ong. This is my beautiful family. That's my wife there in the back, in the pink shirt. Our daughter to her right, and then those three boys down front. That's our sons, Nick, Brad, and Corey. Our daughter's name is Bella, and you're also seeing respective wives and girlfriends along the way. And this is largely why I'm even in this business. As soon as you have kids, and when you have 4 kids, you realize very quickly you need to figure out college and college planning and college funding. We're also pretty partial to the military. Brad there, the one playing with his mustache, and his brother Corey to his right in the United States flag shirt. These guys were both Marines. I am a chaplain in the National Guard, so we're a military family, and we appreciate our service members and also offer some special programs along the way for service members as well. So I just want you to know a little bit about us and my story. I came into this business, I actually started out in real estate. I got my wife Angela into real estate and found out very quickly she was much better at it than I was, and started kind of looking for better things. And while we were trying to figure out our own finances, I went from real estate to mortgages to other financial services, including insurance, and eventually discovered college planning and college funding. One of the reasons is this. What I discovered along the way is there are the three most expensive bills, you could say, the most expensive decisions you have to make as a family. One is the purchase of your house. 2 is paying for college. And 3 is retirement. And we have found we have the greatest satisfaction, my wife and I, helping people make those decisions wisely. She does a great job of helping people with buying and selling homes, and I get to help people with college funding, as well as sometimes it bleeds over into retirement planning as well. We have associates who work with us and referral, great friends that we will refer people to work with. So we get to help people make the best decisions on the most expensive, the greatest expenses that you have in life. here's what to expect. I'm going to tell you the truth about the higher education system and how you can take control of the process. I'm going to show you how to simplify the financial aid process, and this is primarily knowing the codes and what's going on in that process. We're going to look at some clarity. I want to show you some of the misleading information you may have heard and clarify those things. And we're going to get you, let me put it, the stuff behind the stuff. So there's a lot, and you could study college planning for years. I mean, there are books on this whole process that go into detail. I'm talking about 6 and 8 point print, 5, 6, 700 pages. I'm going to kind of take you behind all that and show you what's driving the college industry, especially when it comes to the financials. We are going to talk about why you need to start the college planning process now, even if you think it's too early, even if your kids are in junior high or elementary school. The 5 most common myths, we'll cover those, the 3 magic letters. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about there, and then we'll cover a few of the most common mistakes that parents make when they're working with financial aid. All right, here we go. There are 3 pillars in the college planning process. If you're taking notes, you're going to recognize these right away, but you want to write these down. The 3 pillars in the college planning process. 1, you need to get into the right college. 2, you need to get aid regardless of income or assets. And 3, you need to pay for college without going broke, right? The one thing you definitely don't want to do is use up all your expenses, not use up your expenses, but use up all your income trying to pay for college, especially if you have more than one kid. Because if you pay everything you can on that first child, you're really going to be, in a difficult situation with child number 2 or number 3 or number 4, or however many children you have. Number 1 is the key, getting into the right college, and there's an entire process for that as well. And we're not focusing on that here, but let me just say before I go on to cost of attendance, making sure that your child is matching their school to their career is essential. And one of the things that we do with our clients is a very comprehensive career assessment that we then use in the process of college matching to make sure that the school that they attend is really going to feed into the career that they're going to, that they have decided to pursue and that they are most suited for. Otherwise, college is not the ends. You understand that college is a means to the end, and it's the career that we're shooting for. So let's talk about cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is exactly what it sounds like, how much it costs per year to attend any particular school. And you can look up any school that you're interested in. You can go to their website. You get a little better information if you go to collegeboard.org. But this is the cost of attendance, including books, including food, including a general estimate of travel, including every single expense that a child would have, shampoo, laundry, everything that the school deems is a good estimate of the cost of attendance at that school, and that is per year. Now, generally speaking, nationwide, we're looking at state schools being right around $30,000 per year, and private schools right around $60,000. This is going to range anywhere from $20,000 to $35,000, anywhere from $50,000 to $65,000, $70,000. And if you look at the IVs, obviously they're going to be much higher. But on the average, this is the cost of attendance per year. Now, just looking at, for example, state schools, this would be like buying a car, or an inexpensive car every year. You look at the cost. If you're going to send your child to a private school, to a school that is a little more prestigious, you're buying a nice sports car. You're buying a Porsche every single year, and you're not driving it because that's even more expensive. So now you need to understand that this is a number that is used to figure in how much it's actually going to cost you to send your child to whatever schools you're considering. The cost of attendance is a number provided by the school in the formula, in the calculation of your actual expenses. So it's expensive no matter where your kids go. And like I said, it's not just tuition, it's all the expenses together. And you're looking at 4 years, anywhere from $80,000 to over $240,000, and then take that number and multiply it by the number of kids that you have that will be going to college. You also need to understand that most estimates are showing college, the cost of attendance is going up nationwide 10 to 12% every year. That's an average number. I've heard lower rates and I've heard higher, and it does fluctuate a little bit every year. But it does increase every year no matter what. In fact, when we had our, the economic meltdown in 2008 and 2009, when the housing market crashed and the economy crashed and we had all these issues, tuition did not go down. It didn't even hold steady. It continued to rise. Education is a commodity, and it is at a premium, and it is more expensive every year. So if you take the numbers that I just showed you and then figure how many years from now are you going to start paying for college, let's say your child's a freshman, so you've got 4 years before he or she starts going to school, how much is it going to cost then? That's a key number. You need to start with that number. And one of the reasons you need to start with that number is college planning actually works a little bit backwards, and I'll explain that in a minute. So, how's a family supposed to pay for all that? Here's most choices that families face. Okay, we have some savings. How much of our savings can we use? And where is that savings? Yeah, there's actually, there's a whole part of this process that has to do with asset allocation. And whose name the savings are in will affect how much you actually end up paying. I'll cover that in just a second. But you could use your savings if you have enough. But then the question is also, do you want to use those savings? Second, you're going to take out loans. Since student loans are common, we're not against them, but we are very strategic about them. There's good loans and there's bad loans. And you need to really research the loans you look into. What about scholarships? Scholarships are great. I mean, free money, who doesn't want free money? The issue with scholarships, though, is that most families are focusing on the private scholarships, the famous scholarships, the ones where everyone's competing and submitting applications, and only one person or maybe a few people are going to get it every year. Those funds actually amount to 5%, maybe less than 5% of all the aid that's available to a family. And I don't mean loans. I mean funds that could come from the school. This isn't in the slides, so if you're taking notes, you want to write this down. There's such a thing as a merit-based aid and need-based aid. And these are funds that are available to the schools that you apply to, that they can give to students based on their application, the FAFSA or the profile, their need, or the merit that they bring to the school. This is actually where 95% of the available funds to pay for college, without you having to pay it back, are. But most people don't even pursue those funds. They're so locked on to, I need to get scholarships, that they don't realize the school has money to provide. And I'll tell you the truth, schools don't necessarily have the greatest motivation to provide those funds. They don't always tell you. And one of the reasons they don't tell you is if they don't spend it on students, they get to spend it on the school. It becomes institutional funds. So at least that's something to keep in mind. Scholarships are not the primary way to pay, not even sports scholarships. And the other thing about sports scholarships is they're not a reliable, dependable source of funds. And I work with families who thought they were going to pay for college entirely through a sports scholarship only for one reason or another, whether it's medical or the whims of the coach, discover that their scholarship dreams dry up, and then they're scrambling to figure out how to pay for college. So then, looking at the potential of savings or borrowing money or not getting scholarships, the next choice, well, I guess we go to a lesser school. And a lot of students will make this choice. This is where a lot of people decide, I'm going to go to a community college. If I go to a community college, it's going to cost less. This is how community colleges market. And then later on, I'll just transfer my credits and graduate from another school, which sounds like a great idea. Because if you look at the cost of courses at a community college, you can almost find enough to pay for it, between the cushions in your car. However, you need to understand that those choices, as reasonable as it sounds on the cost plane, don't always work out. In fact, on average, to graduate from a community college, it takes students 6 years. That's kind of the numbers the average that's out there. And there's a few reasons for that. The primary one being it's really hard to get in all the classes you need in the amount of time. And in that time, one thing that students have to learn before they go to college is the concept of opportunity cost. And you parents might understand this, but as soon as we start looking at the cost of school, you need to start considering what's the cost of the opportunity. And here's the thing, the longer you're at a community college, the longer you are delaying your entry into the industry, into the workforce that you are going to have as a career. And each of those years is another year that you're not building your income. You're not building your resume. You're not making the money that you could be making. And that's an opportunity cost. That is a real loss in the process. And if you spend extra time because you couldn't get a seat in a class or the class isn't offered, you're delaying your entry even further. So going to a lesser school isn't always the best choice. Although sometimes, depending on life situation, it may be. I usually find that it isn't. Or maybe you just don't go to school at all. Maybe you don't go to college. I don't think that's a great choice unless you've already decided up front whatever you're going to do doesn't require college. But we are in a time now where jobs that used to be easily gotten by someone who had a bachelor's degree now requires a master's degree and multiple years of experience. So it's getting more and more competitive. And I don't cover it in this class as much, but one of the things to really think about when you get into college is how to strategically use internships to build a resume so that when you are finished with your degree, you also have a well-defined, well-rounded resume to go with it. So let's talk about some of the myths and the reality behind the myths regarding who's available, who is eligible for financial aid. Myth 1. You hear this one a lot. My income is too high. I make too much money, therefore I won't get any financial aid. Now, back up on that. Sorry, guys. We are on myth 1. Usually, the myth that my income is too high is usually the result of filling out the FAFSA and clicking submit, and immediately you get this pop-up that says you do not qualify. And then everyone thinks, wow, I make too much money, I can't even get any aid. And you look at your actual numbers, you think, but I can't afford college. First of all, that pop-up is for a particular grant that practically no one qualifies for. It's not very much money at all. It's only a few thousand, if that. And it's only available to the very lowest income levels in the country. So most likely, if you are considering, if you are watching this webinar and you're thinking about sending your child to school, you're not going to qualify for that. There are levels as far as income and how much you would qualify for from the FAFSA. That doesn't mean you don't qualify for aid. However, like I said before, there are other funds available. Federal aid is not the only way to pay for college. There are funds at the school that are available and other means that you can find free money. You just need to ask. Primarily, you need to ask the schools. And one of the ways that we do this is to apply to the right number of schools and ask those schools how much they'll provide. And then you're looking at the numbers and deciding and determining what you can afford or who may even provide the entire cost of attendance for you. Myth 2. My child's grades are too low. This comes from the same mentality that says the only way to get free money for school is to get scholarships, and the only way to get scholarships is to make excellent grades. And that's not necessarily true. There are various schools that will take students at different grade level, different GPAs, and at the same time, depending on the uniqueness, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but depending on the uniqueness of your child, of your student, the grades may not have as much of an effect as you think. This is very much dependent on the career that your child chooses in the school that you're looking at going to and what you're trying to achieve. So whether or not your child's grades are too low, there's no set answer to that. However, there is always a possibility, regardless of the grades, to go to college, even if it means some other strategies in order to get into college. It does not preclude whether or not you would get some, if not a great deal, of financial aid in the process. This is mutually exclusive. If the school is ready to bring a child in, then they will find a way to work with the family, if necessary, to fund that cost of attendance. Myth 3. I don't qualify because I own a home. I think, and I hear this one a lot, but I think the reason this exists, this myth, is because of the FAFSA, once again. And this has to do with the way the FAFSA is filled out, and a lot of families will include their home on the form as part of their net worth. And you understand the FAFSA is not an IRS form. It works differently. And whether or not you own a home doesn't determine your qualification for financial aid, whether federal aid or need-based, merit-based aid from a school. How about this one? Aid is only for special groups. This is, actually kind of true and not true. It is for special groups in many ways, because there is such a thing as particular scholarships for special affiliations, for for military kids, or for people from a particular region of Europe. Or yes, those exist. However, there is also we've talked about it already a couple of times. The funds that the schools have available to bring students in and to help with their cost of attendance. Why would they give your child those funds? They will do that because your child demonstrates a particular uniqueness. And here's where we peel back the screen a little bit and you understand what's happening in the college. Colleges now, especially, they have what's called, part of it is the strategic enrollment that goes on in schools. Part of it is just filling what they need to do to make their departments achieve the goals that they have, right? So you've got a music department. That music department has goals. You have a physics department. You have an English department. You have these different things going on. You have everything that they're trying to do, engineering, chemistry, and they're trying to build programs, and they need to achieve a certain level, and those programs require things. This is where ethnicity may or may not come into play, depending on what the school needs. For example, if you're of Mexican descent and you're thinking about going to San Diego, that doesn't help you too much. You're not a minority there, right? In my own story, I am half Chinese, half Brazilian, and this doesn't have to do with college, but my parents tried to get me into a magnet school when I was going to elementary school, and they wouldn't let me in because they had enough Asians for their quota. However, they were able to register me as a Hispanic, although that's technically inaccurate because of my Brazilian heritage. This happens in colleges too. If there's an ethnic need, that might work. How about a school that has an engineering program without very many females? They would wait, a girl who wants to come in and study engineering, especially if it's a particular specialty within engineering, because they get to put that on their fact sheet and show a diversity and a special affinity for that program that other schools may not have, or that they really want to demonstrate. So when we're talking about uniqueness, we're talking about the uniqueness that the school needs. And we had a student who got into a school who was a musician, and determined by talking to the band, the music department, that the band needed someone to play bassoon. He wasn't a bassoonist, but they really needed someone to play bassoon, and he really wanted to go to the school. So his application showed that he was going to go to that school to learn bassoon, and he was immediately accepted. Whereas when he was putting on, I think it was guitar, they had enough guitarists. There wasn't a need there, so he wasn't unique, but a bassoonist was. And at that point, the school says, we want you, and we're willing to put some money into it as an investment to get you into the school. So that's myth 4. Aid is only for special groups. What about student loans? Well, here's what happens. So people say, well, it's an easy process. I don't know what we need to do, but we'll just go to the financial aid office at the school that we decide to go to, pick the school, we'll go to the financial aid office, and they'll help us. And we've actually had financial aid employees talk to us about this. Here's the issue. Well, let me put it like this. Right now, as I'm recording this, it's the beginning of February, so we're entering tax season, and if I wanted to, and maybe you should ask yourself if you'd want to do this, you can take all your financial information to the IRS and they will complete your tax returns for you for free. It doesn't cost anything, they'll do it for you. And the likelihood that you do that is slim to none. No one will do that. Why? Because you're looking for the right strategies, legally and ethically, but the right strategies to make sure that you pay your taxes, yes, but not a penny more than you have to. Same thing happens here. When you go to the financial aid office, one, ethically, legally, they're not allowed to really advise you on the best decisions to make. They can give you the forms. They can give you an outline, a general idea of what you need to do. They'll process the forms. They'll tell you what kind of loans they'll give you or aid they'll give you, but nothing more. They're not allowed to do more. Same thing with the high schools. They can only give you so much advice. They can't really show you, here's the process. Let's walk through it this way. Let's try this. Let's try that. Here's your choices. They can't do that because of liability issues. You have to work with someone outside of the systems to get that kind of help. But the other thing is those financial aid offices, you need to remember, work for the schools. And sometimes, actually pretty often, the loans that they recommend, their preferred loans, are loans that also give the school a finder's fee, a commission. So they're not necessarily the best choice for you. They're just the ones that the school works with. But you can go into the office and ask the financial aid office to help you with everything and go with whatever you receive, just like you could go to the IRS and have them do your taxes. But the chances that you're getting the best deal are pretty slim. Okay, and we just covered this. The schools have a preferred list of college lenders, and it is because they have a vested interest. And the same reason you wouldn't have the IRS fill out your forms, I would recommend you don't have the school provide you with the financial aid. Now, we've talked about cost of attendance. That's the cost per year to go to any one school, all expenses included. Here's the next 3-letter code you need to know, and you are going to be through this process living and breathing this code as you figure out the school your child will go to and how much it will cost. This is the expected family contribution, and it is the 3 magic letters of college funding. The EFC, the expected family contribution, is what the government and the schools think you can afford for college. Now, on the EFC, and this is determined by the FAFSA, there are 74 factors considered to determine your family's EFC. Top 6: parents' income, parents' assets, students' income and assets, number of people in the household, and number of students in college. These are the top 6 keys used to determine the EFC. Now, it's also good to know, as long as you're figuring out your EFC, there's 163 different ways to reduce that number. It's similar to tax planning. Actually, the more I get into this, the more I realize colleges are more invasive than the IRS. They want to know more information, more about your life, more about your finances, more about your history than the IRS does. And there's 35 pages worth of formula in the EFC logarithm. Algorithm. You can tell I did not study math. There are 35 pages of formula in the EFC algorithm. Now, it's a secret. The government doesn't want you to know your EFC until your senior year. You don't get to find out. You can estimate it, but you don't get to fill out that form, the FAFSA, and get your EFC until senior year. The EFC is the same for every college to which you apply. Please remember that. That is essential to understand. It's the same number for every college to which you apply. And it's a springboard. It determines your starting point in calculating cost. I'm going to show you how it works in just a minute. Every family will have a different EFC each year, so you do this every year. So you're going to do this senior year. Before your child goes to college, you get an EFC. Towards the end of the freshman year of college, you'll do this again. Preparing for the next year, you get another EFC. So they are constantly checking on your finances. Now then, you are probably wondering, what's my EFC? There is a quick and dirty EFC calculator at collegeboard.org. Just go there and search EFC, and you will find a calculator. You can plug in some numbers, right off of your tax form, and that will give you an idea of what your EFC is. Don't bank on that. Don't take that. It's only an estimate, and I almost don't like having it on here, but people ask me. We have slightly more detailed calculators, and it's very essential that you fill that form out correctly. So let's look at how the EFC works. Quick case study. I don't want to spend too much time on this. In this case, Robert comes from a divorced family. He goes to John Burroughs High. He wants to study pre-law. Here's his SAT score to 1250. He's looked at 11 colleges around the world. Now, the family income is approximately $55,000 a year. That's for the home he is living in, and he has $23,500 in UGMA. The UGMA is basically this is money that is set aside specifically to pay for college. There's 5 family members. One of them's in college. So, what you need to know, based on that information and the numbers they got from their tax forms, and when they plugged it into the EFC initially, their initial EFC was $16,211 per year. We looked at the schools they wanted to go to. We kind of figured a few things out. We were actually able to move him from one household to another, and his EFC ended up being $4,000. You can't always do that. This is just one of the cases, and the reason I bring it up is because, once again, this process is invasive, and they want to know everything about you and your family, and it affects the numbers. So you have to be very strategic about how you do this. I mean, if anything, when you get to filling out the EFC, set aside a few hours and read the fine print, and take the time to understand what it's saying, because it will drastically affect your number. You can do it wrong initially, like this family did, and you're looking at paying $16,000 a year, or you can find the right strategies in the process, and it's only going to cost you $4,000 a year. The EFC is how much the government and the schools expect you as a family to pay towards the cost of attendance. Okay, then they start kicking in other aid to help. So we're looking at a school that was going to be $55,000 a year. We got the EFC to $4,000, and then received $42,000 from the University of San Diego. So they were able to, between that and the college funds that they had, the UGMA money, they were able to fund college without affecting their retirement. There's another case regarding using the EFC. Now, so Kevin is from Texas. He's going to study business management. He had a pretty good SAT score, 1388. He initially had one college pick. He considered 24, then applied to 9. Let me stop there and explain to you before we move on why that's important. There is a sweet spot as far as how many colleges you apply to. Understand that when you apply to schools, they can peek on the FAFSA and see who else you've submitted applications to. Now, two things happen. Generally speaking, people say, well, you should apply to as many schools as possible. This is students coaching students, basically, or the blind leading the blind in this case. And they say you should apply to as many schools as you can because it's really hard to get into college, and the more you apply, the better your chances. And it sounds reasonable, except when the schools are looking to see where else you're applying, and they see that you're applying to 20, 30, 40 schools, which can be very easy, by the way. When you're doing some of these applications online, especially for state schools, it'll let you submit the Common App or whatever app to multiple schools all at once. You just have to pay the application fee. So students will sit there and just keep clicking submit, 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 submit. And then the admissions department sees that and they go, this kid doesn't even know where he wants to go. He doesn't have any direction. He doesn't have any purpose. She doesn't know what she wants to do for her life. Why would we want her here? So you can't apply to too many schools. However, you can also apply to too few schools if you only apply to 1 or 2. We tend to recommend anywhere from 8 to 15. That's kind of, and it depends on the degree that you're looking at, sometimes less, sometimes more. And there's a reason for that, because we want to see what those letters are. When you get award letters, we want to see how much you're being awarded from these different schools. And you might find that you can use those award letters as leverage to negotiate with other schools to get the financial aid from the schools, right? So you need to have just the right number of applications. Not too many, because it just makes you look scattered, and not too few, because it doesn't give you any leverage in the process. So back to Kevin. Kevin is applying to 9 schools for business. His income, family income, is $467,000. When they fill out the FAFSA, it's going to tell them, for the most part, they don't qualify if they just went with their income. They've got $360,000 taxable investments and $250,000 in home equity. It's 4 family members, but 2 of them are already in college. Okay, so the initial EFC, when they filled it out the first time, and they included all of their business expenses and their home equity and everything the way it seemed like it should be done, their initial EFC was $78,500. That means that they were expected to pay $78,000 per year towards college. Once they corrected their EFC, and take a look at that, it was $11,300 per year that they were expected to bring in. And one of the reasons for this is asset allocation. That's the word I'm looking for. Asset allocation. When we start early enough, when we're able to see where your assets are, and in this day and age, we need to start ideally in 7th or 8th grade. When we see how the assets are set up, there are many things that you can do to make sure that by the time you get to applying for college, you're not listing things that inflate your net worth according to colleges, right? Because your net worth on an IRS form is different from your net worth on the FAFSA or on the CSS profile. The CSS profile is another form used a lot by Ivy League schools and more prestigious private schools. The CSS profile is even more invasive than the FAFSA, asks a whole lot more questions. I'll show you that in a few minutes. So what happened here is that we were able to help with asset allocation, and then we were also able to make sure that they put the right numbers on the right lines and didn't list things that didn't need to be listed. One of the mistakes commonly made, I think it's in the next slide, is how you allocate or how you list business assets. And in the end, here, this family is making $467,000 plus a year. They still receive $21,000 per year in financial aid at Baylor. Okay, one more case study so you guys see what happens with the EFC. This is another California family. Scott from Ventura County wants to study biology. Notice his SAT score. Like I said, grades and scores are not the determining factor of whether or not he'll go to college or get aid. Applied to 7 colleges. Family income is about $110,000. There's no home equity, but they have money in a 401k, a substantial amount. 5 family members, 1 going to college. So their initial EFC was approximately $42,500. And once we worked through it, we got it down to just under $22,000, and they got $23,500 of financial aid at University of the Pacific. Again, this had to do with how we allocated their assets and correctly filling out the FAFSA. The estimates are that 85. This comes from the FAFSA people. 85% of families make major mistakes on the form. And making major mistakes on the FAFSA means you're going to be paying for those mistakes substantially. So what do we do with the EFC? We subtract it from the COA, and that tells you your need. What I mean, remember we talked about earlier, the cost of attendance is what it's going to cost per year. All things, it's all inclusive. Your EFC is how much the FAFSA, how much the school, how much the federal government says you're expected to pay, we think you can afford per year. So you take your cost of attendance, you subtract your EFC, and that tells you how much money you need. Need is based on the cost of attendance minus expected family contribution. Financial aid is based on need. Okay? So how much financial aid you get is based on need. The higher the need, the more likely you are to receive aid. Yeah, you need to see something that's going on here. It's a backwards process. That's how it works. What I mean by it being a backwards process is, let's say you're going to buy a car. What you don't do when you're going to buy a car is go to the dealership, pick out the car, sign the papers, drive it home, and then ask, how much are we paying for this car? The first thing you ask when you're looking for a car, when you're looking for a bicycle, when you're looking for a house, when you're looking for anything, the first thing most people will do is ask, how much is it? Is it in my price range? But college, it works backwards. You don't know how much it's going to cost until you've picked the school, figured out the cost of attendance, brought into play your EFC, and then calculated it all, and then you get the need. You don't know until the schools have given you award letters. It's a backwards process. That's how it works. So we need to figure out how to work within that system. So what kind of aid is available? Let's talk about that in detail. Aid is going to come out, on your net worth. Is your primary residence included? Is your small business included? The answer is maybe, maybe not. Your primary residence is always included on your on your IRS forms for your net worth, but it is not included most of the time. I can't think of a time where it is, but it could happen. The primary residence is not part of your net worth on the FAFSA. That's important, especially if what you have done is taken the FAFSA form, which looks like an IRS form, and handed it to your accountant to fill out. If your accountant is not a specialist in college funding, your accountant is then going to pull out last year's tax returns, find the number for net worth, and put it on that box right there in the FAFSA, and they are not calculated the same. And that will affect you when you're trying to get financial aid. How about your small business? Well, if you look at the FAFSA form, it will tell you how much of your small business is included. And for the most part, we see this mistake a lot. People will list all their business assets, such as their equipment, their vehicles, and their supplies, and all this stuff that they own as a family-owned business, but is not considered part of your EFC. So you need to really look at that form in detail and make sure you're putting in the right numbers. There are two types of aid. Gift aid, that's free money. We like that. That's when you get merit-based aid. That's when you get need-based aid. That's when the school says, please come to our school. We will give you this much money to come here. And then there is self-help. Self-help is work study. That's the certain amount of cost of your tuition, cost of attendance that the student works as part of going to school. And then there's good student loans. There's bad loans, and then there's good student loans. And there is a strategic way to use student loans to fund college. You need to make sure you're looking at the best choices. Generally speaking, the student loans that the school tells you to take are not the best choices. Sometimes they are, but not. I haven't seen one yet. Let me put it that way. You want to look at the rates on those loans just like you would look at anything else. You want to look at the cost, and you want to compare. Don't just go with what the school gives you. And let me leave it at that before I get way off track. Let me talk quickly about scholarships. Remember I said, you're only looking at about 5. When you look at private scholarships, it only provides about 5% of the funds. Of all the free money that's available out there, private scholarships only account for 5% of the funds. And these are the ones that everyone competes to receive and are very competitive. The college, on the other hand, has needs-based funds. It has institutional-based funds. That's like just discretionary funds that they can give to school, to students. And they have merit-based funds that they're going to look at academic, or they're going to look at other aspects of a person's uniqueness to see if they merit financial aid. And then what doesn't go to the students goes back to the school for their own use. Let me add that little warning there, a little public service announcement. Please watch out for guaranteed scholarship scams. There are people that will tell you they will sell you a list of guaranteed scholarships. There are people that will tell you they will guarantee you get a scholarship, and they will charge you thousands of dollars. I've seen anywhere from $100 to thousands of dollars for these lists or these services. And for the most part, what you get is a guaranteed list of scholarships that you can apply to on your own. This information is available for free. You can find it for yourself online. Collegeboard.org, again, is a great place to start. If you're going to look for scholarships, you don't need to pay for it. You can search that yourself. Google is a great resource. So there are 3 questions to ask every college. 1, what percentage of need do you meet? Every college is going to have a certain percentage of how much need you have that they will meet. So remember, cost of attendance minus expected family contribution. That's COA minus EFC equals need. Right? So when you look at a school and they tell you your cost of attendance is $30,000 and your EFC is $20,000, you have $10,000 left over. That's your need. Now, how much of that need does the school meet? It could be nothing. It could be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%. It could be 100%. You don't know. That's something you need to know from the schools. I'm going to show you a breakdown of why in just a minute. Question 2. What percentage of that need will be gift aid and what percentage is self-help? Self-help is the work study and self-help is student loans, work study or student loans, or you're paying for it on your own. So let's look at a case study. I'm just going to show you this one, I believe, in this case. School A and School B, you can see the cost right there. This is per year, the cost per year. School A is $40,000, School B is $20,000. These are actual numbers. We've rounded them. These are from actual schools. School A is a private school. School B is a state school. Now, this family has an EFC of $10,000. Remember, we said that your EFC coming from the FAFSA is the same number no matter the school you go to. So when you look at School A, the private school, you can see that they need $30,000. You look at School B, $20,000 minus $10,000, you need $10,000. So far, it looks like it is cheaper to go to a state school. However, School A will meet 100% of the need. 80% of that is gift aid. That means they're just going to give 80% of the need. And then 20% is self-help. You have to figure you're going to do either work study or you're going to use student loans for 20%. Right? School B, back to the state school, is only going to meet 60% of the need. That means they're going to come up with $6,000. Then of that $6,000, 50% of it is gift aid and 50% is self-help. So now look at what it actually costs to go to the private school with an EFC of $10,000 and a gift aid, 80% of the need, 80% of $30,000 comes to $24,000. That means the total self-help is $6,000. You know what? Let me highlight this so you can see it. $40,000 is the cost. You have $10,000 is how much you're expected to pay, and that leaves a need of $30,000. School A is going to meet 100%. Gift aid 80. Here's that number here, 24,000. Self-help 20. There's 6,000. So once you take 40,000 minus these numbers, your cost is 16. Whereas School B, because they only meet 60% of the need here, and half of it's gift aid, half of it's self-help. In the end, once you bring in your cost, there's 4,000 unmet need. See that? Because they meet 60, whereas here they met 100. 4,000 unmet. Your net cost per year is 17,000. It is actually more expensive to go to a state school rather than a private school. Now, we have seen far more drastic numbers than this. I use this to show you a very realistic how it works. And so you don't think I'm inflating everything. We only see $1,000 per year difference, but that's $1,000 per year. And we can see this happen time and again between private schools and state schools. It doesn't always work out this way, but pretty often we find it is a much better deal to go to a private school because of the way they support the student. And you take a minute to look at that to understand the slide, because I know that's a lot of numbers all in one place, but that's how it works. I would be happy to explain this again if you have questions. So how long does it take to graduate? That's the third question you want to ask a school. The first question was, back up so you see it. We're going through 3 questions here, right? Question 1, what percentage of need do you meet? Question 2, how much of that need is gift aid and how much is self-help? Question 3, how long does it take to graduate? Why does that matter? Remember we were saying that community college can take 6 years to graduate. Why does it matter how long it takes? Here's why. It can take 2 to 3 years to accumulate 60 credits at community college, and that time, what's being spent, that's the opportunity cost. Remember I was talking about that a little bit ago. And as long as your child is in school, he or she isn't making any money, and that's lost income potential. So at a public school, at a state school, you're looking at an average time to graduate of 5.4 years. At a private school, you're looking at 4.2. So by going an extra year, that is another year of no income, another year of no resume, unless you're doing a great internship, but you're not actually working full time. Another year that you're paying for college. So you have actual costs and you have lost opportunity costs. What we really want to think about is, can we achieve our goal, get the education that we want to get for the career we want to have in 4 years or less? I mean, if we can do it in 3 years, all the better. We call this juggernaut mode. This is when you are focused. This is when you are intent. I'm going to be honest. I really prefer to work with families myself, and I choose the families I work with. We can only work with so many. I don't take everyone on. We are selective because I want to work with families that are serious about college. Students who are thinking about going to college as a party school, they're not serious, and that's fine. I have nothing against that. You want to do that, that's on you. It's not my decision for your life, obviously. But I find that I am most able to help students who are saying, I have a career, a dream, a goal, and I have to get through college to get there. So I'm going to focus. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to do it as quickly as I can. When you're motivated that way, you are really maximizing the investment that you're going to put into college. The investment of time, effort, of money, and your own parents' blood, sweat, and tears. So that is something very important, because if you find at the school that students are taking an average of 5 or 6 years to graduate, and they don't make it possible for you to finish in 4 or 3, it's going to be more expensive. So put your child into juggernaut mode, an incredibly focused, purposeful, and intensified state of mind, driven by desire for a specific outcome. And remember, you don't get hired just because you graduate. We said that earlier. You need to have a resume that demonstrates experience. And that comes through internships. That comes through work, working while you go to school. Again, not the focus of this program, but always important, something that we would bring up. So let's just cover a few more points. We had mentioned uniqueness, and we want to always make sure that as we are selecting the schools that we go to, that we apply to, we're also finding out from the schools what kind of uniqueness they need. This is conversations that you would have with the head of the departments that you're thinking about going to find out what they need. Understand that the schools are in business, and since they're in business, it's not about your needs, it's about theirs. And they need students to bring in to fill out the image or the programs or whatever it is that's going on at the school, their interests. They're looking for students that are going to partner with them. Here's the beautiful thing about that, by the way. That's the same conversation you have, or your child will have when they go for a job interview. A wise person going to a job interview is asking, what does this company need, and how can I meet that need? That's what's happening now when we're doing applications to colleges. What does this college need? How can I meet that need? That's your uniqueness that you're going to demonstrate. So start making a list. Start thinking about what makes your student unique. So you have ideas to draw from. How, when you craft the application in the essay, how are you demonstrating that uniqueness to the school? We talked about limiting applications. We talked about what the school needs. So college is an industry, and you have to understand that nonprofits have to make money too. And schools literally invest in students. This is what I mentioned a little bit ago, strategic enrollment. And this is the specialists at the colleges who are saying, what's the image that we need to create? What's the numbers that we need to get? It does not look good for a school to say, for example, let's just say 100 award letters for round numbers. Let's say the school gives 100 award letters out, and then only 20 or 30% of those students, 20 or 30 students, say they accept the award and they go to school there. They need to demonstrate that they put out 100 award letters and they get better than 80 accepted. So they're going to be strategic about how they enroll. And that means the uniqueness has to fit in. They know that if they ask you to go to school there, you are highly likely to accept that award and go to school. So they're also going to invest in the students, and they figured out a long time back For example, with wealthier students, if you draw the student to the school and you use money to do it, if you're willing to pay their cost and keep the costs down, then you can draw a wealthier student who will then eat on campus and buy the more expensive food and go to all the games and bring a date and pour more money back into the college itself. And not only that, they're the students that become the donors as alumni after they graduate. So it makes sense from a financial perspective, from an economics perspective, for a school to give financial support, financial aid to wealthier students, because it's a financial investment in the long run. Few quick things as we close. There's two main financial aid forms. One's the FAFSA. You can fill out the FAFSA on your own. Please read the fine print at fafsa.ed.gov. Don't go to fafsa.com, fafsa.org, fafsa.anything else. There are services that will walk you through the entire form. It looks like you're filling out the FAFSA, and in the end, they want a fee for them to submit everything you just filled out to fafsa.ed.gov. It is called the free application for financial student aid for a reason. It's free. So make sure if you go and you decide you're going to do this on your own, that you go to this link and none other. Second, this real quick. The deadline for the FAFSA is March 1st of each year, so March 1st of the year prior to when your student will go to school. Apply early because grants are on a first come, first served basis, so please don't wait until the end of February. There's 156 questions, and there's a 91, I said 85 earlier, there is a 91% error rate according to the Department of Education. I highly recommend you get help or you read it in detail. Second main financial form is the CSS profile. You can find that one at College Board. The CSS profile is only for the private schools. This one's got over 275 questions. It's even more invasive than the FAFSA. Deadlines vary. And please be aware, colleges may have your student fill one out about your financials. And one thing I will tell every parent, don't let your student fill out the FAFSA, don't let your student fill out the CSS profile. You do that. They don't know your numbers. You might have a very intelligent math whiz for a son or daughter, but they don't know your numbers, and they don't necessarily read the fine print, and they don't have the savvy to understand these forms. Do not have your child fill this out. And if the school is telling them to start it, make sure they don't do anything more than like name and address and then save it. You need to take responsibility on this because the cost of college is significant. Okay, number one way to get more money, ask. It is that simple. Ask the college that you're interested in for more aid. Explain to them why. If you have award letters from other schools that are offering more money than the college you want to go to, show them. Ask for more aid. There are 3 family category types. This has to do with the FAFSA. So if you're under $70,000 adjusted gross income, you should receive financial aid at all colleges. 71 to 140, you're looking at some to most schools over 140,000. There is no need-based aid at public schools, only private schools. So one more reason why, if you're in a higher income bracket, you should be looking at the private schools. So why should you start planning early? Here's why. At 9th grade, colleges are already recruiting, and student positioning starts. This is when we start matching to colleges. This is when we start doing student positioning. Student positioning is figuring out the uniqueness in the career and the college that you should be considering. This is 10th grade is the starting point for your GPA and the acceptance process, and the EFC planning strategies start now. It's actually earlier now. With the prior year, this means, okay, let's say you fill out your application and your child is a senior. You are now using prior year IRS forms. So for 2017, you are now using 2015 IRS forms to fill out the FAFSA. Now, if there's anything you could have done to reallocate your assets in a better strategic way, it had to get done before your taxes in 2015. Your student would have been a sophomore then, so we would have done it sometime in freshman year. We would have started planning it in their 8th grade year, the end of junior high or middle school, whatever your school system calls it. So if you start in 7th and 8th grade, we are able to get all the pieces together in time for when you fill out the FAFSA in 12th grade. It's literally to the point that we need to start that early. If you're ready in 9th, 10th grade, it's not too late. Don't think it's too late, I can't do anything. Yes, there's a lot of things that we can do. I'm just saying the ideal time is 7th or 8th grade to get started. 11th grade, you have to be prepared with the final list of colleges. This is when the SEM, this is Strategic Enrollment Management, that's when they start that process of how they're going to select and enroll, and this is when uniqueness becomes key. 12th grade, college apps, college acceptance, financial aid forms, everything starts coming together. So, funding plan for college. Start as soon as possible. And I'll tell you a little bit about ourselves. Our Reliable Services. This is Reliable College Planning Experts, and some of you also know our service of Christian Collegiates. We do help in this entire process. We help with student positioning, that is figuring out the career that fits your student best, the college to go with that career. We do that through an assessment. So it's very important that we see college as a means to an end, not the end. So we start understanding the student first. Make sure that the school you're going to go to is actually a good school for what you want to do. And that also brings into play how much, how your financials are doing, because we're not going to just apply to schools that are well out of your budget and would never work out either. So we help the student find the right college, and then we ensure that they get accepted. I can't promise, I can't guarantee that you're going to get into every school you want to go to, but the way our program works, you will get accepted to college, because we are going to show you the best schools to apply to and the reach schools. So some you may or may not get into, but we know once we do our process which schools you are most likely to get into, and we can at least say you will go to college. We'll get you free money for college regardless of income or assets. That's something we work on, and we don't believe in paying retail for college. And then we'll show you how to fund the rest. That's our program. We do the college matching, we help with the applications and the essays along the way, and then we help with the funding plan to get free money and fund the rest without affecting your current lifestyle or sacrificing your retirement. And that is very important for us. We definitely don't want you ever to sacrifice your retirement or change your lifestyle. So we do everything we can, and we have a pretty good success rate of helping families fund. In addition, because we are doing the financial process alongside of you, you are able to completely use our services tax deductibly. So what we do next, if you want to learn more, is a one-on-one consult. This is open to everyone, and the way we do the consult is, in this case, if you're watching this video, you will meet with me. Again, my name's Andre, and I am the founder of Reliable College Planning Experts. We'll schedule a private consultation. I will be your college planner, and we'll get you a more detailed EFC estimate, and we'll look at some strategies to help with that. Answer your questions, look into more, you get more information about how to get free money, so we'll show you more of what we do. It starts with a college planning worksheet. That's something that you as a family would fill out and submit to us a couple of days before your meeting. The cost is $197 for the one-on-one consult, and depending on when you see this recording, it may be refundable. We very often offer that as a refund, and in fact, I'll tell you the truth, if you ask me, I'll refund it if you decide you are going to hire our services. But in the meantime, this is what we are able to do for you. So this is our company, Reliable College Planning Experts. We are actually a division of Reliable Services Group. That is our website. That's my name and my phone number. And if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer them. Please don't hesitate to call. And I would be very excited to hear from you. Thank you so much. I'm going to wrap it up here. You guys all have a blessed day, and I wish you the best in your college planning efforts.